Yo, who think I should let him fall or should I pick him up?
Sorry. Um, anyway, thank you guys for waiting for a while before I did this recording. Been trying to improve my videos lately. Please do like, share, and subscribe. This is a video I'm producing on the Ekweremadus, the moral dilemma that they face. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that viewer discretion is advised. The topic we are about to discuss, human trafficking, may be triggering for some individuals. Moral dilemmas often find their place in philosophical discussions. Moreover, it's important to know that some of the viewpoints presented in this podcast are based on my research, which includes court proceedings and news articles. Now let's dive into the story. Rarely do we see these stories as real life occurrences, but truth can indeed be stranger than fiction. The tale I'm about to share is a true story highlighting the moral dilemma faced by a Nigerian senator, his wife, and their daughter. Their names are the Ekweremadus, hence the title of the video. They found themselves entangled in a complex situation that demanded a moral choice. Imagine the following scenario. What would you do if saving your child's life meant committing a crime? Perhaps you've watched the movie John Q, it's a movie some time back, long time ago by starring Denzel Washington, where he holds the hospital employees hostage in order to secure an expensive operation for his son. It's also a life-saving operation as well, as he lacks the means to afford it. It's worth noting that not everyone in America has access to health insurance, particularly for our international viewers where you have a universal health insurance. And great for you guys, but we don't have health insurance here in America. Let's begin by introducing the key characters in this narrative. Ike Ekweremadu is a prominent Nigerian senator and is the former deputy president of the Nigerian Senate. He has played a significant role in shaping Nigerian politics and governance. Beatrice Ekweremadu is the wife of Ike Ekweremadu. As a supportive partner, she stands by her husband during their family's journey through this challenging moral dilemma. Sonia Ekweremadu is the daughter of Ike and Beatrice Ekweremadu. She was pursuing her graduate studies in the United Kingdom, but had to discontinue due to unforeseen circumstances. Tony is a victim of human trafficking and a former street hawker from Nigeria. Tony is not his real name, it's a pseudonym that I gave him to protect his identity. The courts in the UK have ordered that the real name not be disclosed. Tony's story intertwines with the Ekweremadus. Dr. Obina Obeta serves as the family doctor for the Ekweremadus. He shares a special connection with the family, as he was once a classmate of Ike's younger brother. Dr. Obeta's role in the story adds an intriguing layer of personal and professional dynamics. It's worth noting that the Ekweremadus are affluent individuals known for their substantial wealth and influence. On Thursday, June 23rd, 2022, a shocking turn of events unfolded as Ike and Beatrice Ekweremadu were arrested upon their return from Turkey. They were apprehended on charges of conspiring to traffic a 15-year-old to the UK with the sinister intention of harvesting his kidney. It is crucial to pay attention to the age of the victim as it holds significance for the larger narrative we will explore. Following the arrest, Ike and Beatrice Ekweremadu were taken to Uxbridge Magistrate, where they pleaded not guilty to the charges leveled against them. The gravity of the actions resulted in charges under the Modern Slavery Act. And this is involving, of course, human trafficking and exploitation. At this point, one might be inclined to draw conclusions branding the Ekweremadus as vile individuals. However, I invite you to delve deeper into the story, as there might be untold layers to this unsettling tale. There is a backstory to this. What could drive two successful millionaires to engage in such abhorrent activities? Is there more to the story than meets the eye? It is crucial to examine the complexities and factors that led to this unmanageable situation. By exploring the backstory, we aim to shed light on the motives, circumstances, and potential missing pieces of the puzzle. This nuanced approach allows us to gain a deeper understanding of the Ekweremadus' choices and confront the uncomfortable reality that evil can manifest in unexpected places. As we embark on this journey of discovery, we strive to uncover the untold aspects of the narrative, challenging preconceived notions and providing a more comprehensive perspective. So before reaching final conclusions or leveling the Ekweremadus outright, let us embark on an exploration of the backstory, uncovering motivations and circumstances that drove these seemingly successful individuals down such a dark path. The story doesn't end with their arrest. It's only the beginning of an intricate and unsettling tale that demands our attention, understanding, and contemplation. To understand this story, let's take a figurative journey back in time in 2019. Sonia, a highly successful student, was attending graduate school at Coventry University in the UK. Her parents had the means to afford her school fees, and her future seemed promising. However, everything was about to change towards the end of 2019. One day, Sonia noticed swelling in her legs and experienced fatigue. Initially, she attributed the symptoms to school-related stress. However, in December 2019, while in class, Sonia suddenly fainted. It was then that she received a diagnosis of a rare form of kidney disease known as focal segmental glomerulosclerosis nephrotic syndrome, FSGS. If I mispronounce it, I'm not a doctor, I'm sorry. Due to the severity of her condition, Sonia was compelled to withdraw from school. She now had to undergo dialysis 3 to 4 times a week for 5 hours each session. Being a non-UK citizen, this treatment proved to be financially burdensome to her parents. Adding to the complexity, the waiting list of a kidney transplant was estimated to be 3 to 5 years, and finding a suitable match was crucial. Now, let me be clear, the 3 to 5 years is just a guideline. Some people it takes longer because you have to find a match. There are a lot of other factors. To worsen matters, Sonia's illness was progressively deteriorating, with each passing day increasing the likelihood of her death. On September 13, 2022, while her parents were facing trial, Sonia took to Instagram to make a public appeal for a kidney. She described her survival as nothing short of a miracle, thanks to the grace of God, to put it in her own words. This situation is what led her parents, Ike and Beatrice, to disregard the Modern Slave Act. Would you be willing to go to jail to save the life of your child? Most people would answer yes to that question. In fact, most of my friends say yes. I've not seen anybody say no. So in essence, the Ekweremadus were driven by the desperate desire to save their child's life, which provides some moral justification. However, I believe most of you still remember the case of the 15-year-old boy that was mentioned during their trial. You might be asking, I understand their desperation, but I would never consider harvesting a kidney from a 15-year-old. That's barbaric. However, there is more to this story, and it's important to withhold judgment until we hear Tony's side of the story as well. Tony was a street hawker who sold cell phone parts, but Beyond that, he appeared to have no prospects for life. In many African countries, including Nigeria, being poor is akin to a death sentence. Opportunities are scarce, if not non-existent, and our leaders have done little to assist the underprivileged. One day, Tony was approached by a friend who had previously donated a kidney to Dr. Albetta in exchange for money. This friend informed Tony about an opportunity to work in the UK. However, Tony stated in court that he was not made aware of the kidney transplant aspect of the arrangement. Personally, I find this claim highly unlikely. Why would someone willingly omit such crucial information from Tony while offering him a chance to go to the UK? First, Tony initially claimed to both the UK clinic and the court that he was 15 years old. However, the Nigerian court later confirmed that he was actually 21 years old. A fact that was further validated by the court on July 2022. It's important to know the significance of this age difference, as it may explain the divergence between the American and UK courts' perspectives. Such an issue could have had huge implications for the prosecution if the case were tried in the United States. However, let's not diverge. Let's now delve into the story. Second, it is likely that Tony would have gone through the UK consulate or High Commission to obtain a visa. The reason for his travel would have been clearly stated. Additionally, it's worth noting that Tony might have undergone an interview during this process, and Senator Ekweremadu even wrote a letter to the commission claiming Tony as a relative, which was not true. Furthermore, Tony falsely claimed to be an orphan, which we now know is not true. These misrepresentations about his life led me to believe that Tony was aware that this endeavor involved donating a kidney. However, what I believe to be true is that Tony did not fully comprehend the implications of undergoing a kidney transplant and the level of health care he would require post-transplant. The misrepresentations that Tony made should also be attributed to the Ekweremadus and Dr. Albetta, as I doubt that complete consent was obtained. I will elaborate on what I mean by this later, but suffice to say, if it's only partial consent, it's not consent. Okay, it has to be full consent, especially when it involves an operation like that. Tony was purportedly paid £7,000, the equivalent of approximately $8,000, although it's probable that he received a far lesser amount considering Dr. Alberta's involvement as a middleman. Upon Tony's arrival in the UK, he resided with Dr. Alberta and was introduced to Sonia. This was a misjudgment on the part of the Ekweremadus. Once Tony was in the UK, it would have been prudent for the Ekweremadus to insist on getting to know him better and having him leave separately and independently from both the Ekweremadus and Dr. Albetta. Sonia was unaware of the payment to Tony. She believed him to be a genuine Good Samaritan relative, and it's likely that she viewed the claim of being relatives as actually true. Consequently, she willingly took photos with him, possibly assuming that he was a distant relative in Africa. It is common to have a second or even third cousin, and it's not always easy to explain precise relationships in Africa, especially in Zambia and Nigeria and other places. If you go to, I have a number of relatives and I don't know how we're related. There's a relative of mine that I know that I assist from time to time, and I don't even know how we're connected. I have no idea how we're connected, how we're cousins. I have no idea. I'm pretty sure it'll be some complicated explanation. However, that's how it works in Africa. So it would have been very normal for Sonia to have accepted her parents' explanation that this was her relative or cousin. She wouldn't have had a problem accepting that. Based on these considerations, this is the most probable sequence of events as I perceive it. Tony encountered an individual who was knowledgeable about UK law and generally wanted to assist him in remaining in the country. Instances like this occur, and to illustrate this, let me digress for a moment to here in America. I've interacted with many immigrants. I myself am a child of two immigrant parents, but they left and went back. I won't tell the story here. Anyway, a friend once introduced me to a woman who was suffering abuse at the hands of her American husband, who was originally from Africa too. Additionally, her husband refused to sponsor her for permanent residence. Upon hearing her story, I suggested a simple solution. She could file a claim based on domestic violence, which would enable her to obtain permanent residence without relying on her husband's sponsorship. This strategy proved successful, and she's now an American citizen. Similarly, Tony would have likely come across someone in the UK who could provide guidance and support. Let me explain my reasoning. Consider why Tony specifically claims to be 15 years old. Why not say he was 17 years old? The answer lies in the fact that the legal age of emancipation in the UK is 16. Age grants certain rights and protections. The person Tony encountered would have been alarmed by the meager payment of £7,000 and concerned about Tony's ability to afford ongoing medical expenses, to which Tony had no response. The individual would have likely have concluded this was a case of human trafficking with the intention of harvesting a kidney. Now, if you were knowledgeable in this matter, what advice would you give to Tony? Well, since Tony appeared useful, it would have been important to explain that legally, a 15-year-old enjoys more protections and legal responsibilities compared to a 21-year-old. Tony could have sought guidance on how to avoid the kidney operation, and he would have been advised to claim to be 15 years old. It was the most convenient way for Tony to avoid undergoing the operation, especially since he had no knowledge of how things would unfold. It is important to recognize that a 15-year-old is unable to provide consent for organ donation to another person. In fact, I believe this is what led the medical examiners at the UK private clinic to refuse to hold the operation under any circumstances. Whenever there's even a hint of someone being a minor, even if there is a possibility of deception, one must exercise great caution due to the potential severe legal consequences. Greed played a role in the Ekweremadus action, but I must exclude Sonia from this judgment. As millionaires, their love for their daughter should have prompted them to be willing to give up their entire world to save her life. If they were willing to engage in illegal kidney purchasing, why not consider offering, for example, 10% of their wealth to a willing donor? Why exacerbate the situation? Would Tony have reacted differently if he had been offered a significantly larger sum of money and the opportunity to remain in the UK? Would the UK magistrate court have viewed it differently? Why, while counterfactuals are challenging to prove, I believe the answer is yes. So my question is why? Why didn't they consider this? Let's consider a scenario where Tony was offered 500,000 with a substantial down payment of, let's say, $50,000, and an agreement to cover any medical treatments for potential side effects resulting from a kidney transplant. It is important to note that offering to pay for medical expenses and documenting it in writing in the UK is not inherently illegal, so it would have been perfectly fine for them to do it. However, I want to emphasize that I'm not promoting or endorsing illegal action to save one's children. Instead, we can examine this situation of the Ekweremadus moral dilemma and draw lessons from it. In hindsight, the Ekweremadus should have taken the time to get to know Tony better. Perhaps they should have insisted on meeting him, as well as his parents, to gain a deeper understanding of his background and character. We should all keep this in mind. Partial consent is not consent. It's either you have consent or you don't. There's no in between. So while Tony may have been aware that the situation involved a kidney transplant, it is unlikely that he fully comprehended the implications. In truth, it is challenging to understand the intricacies of such matters unless one has a background in medical field. Personally, prior to researching the subject, I had very limited knowledge about kidney disease. As mentioned earlier, Senator Ekweremadu should have taken the time to get to know Tony and his family. It was crucial to ensure that Tony understood the potential risks and consequences involved. It could have been beneficial for Tony to meet with a nephrologist in Nigeria, providing him with professional insight into the process of a kidney transplant. Once Tony became connected to the Ekweremadus, direct communication should have been established to ensure that the young man fully comprehended the risks associated with the kidney donation and also got to know the family as well. From the information I've gathered, these risks can be significant depending on the situation, although it's usually very manageable. This is why I suggested that the Ekweremadu should have agreed to cover Tony's medical expenses. This is an important part of it, and it seems that they never even talked about that from what went on in court. Furthermore, it was essential to offer Tony an alternative and an opportunity to reconsider his decision. The messaging should have been clear. Please let us know if you do not wish to proceed, something like that. One way to demonstrate this would have been to provide Tony with a separate accommodation and money for his sustenance. Why should Tony live with Dr. Obeta? Why? For what? It sounds really, really fishy. That sounds really trafficking. You know, that's really trafficking. You want to make sure that you maintain control of the person. So him having separate accommodation would have been key to minimize the trafficking charge. By granting him the freedom to move around London independently, it would have been challenging for any prosecutor to argue that this was a case of human trafficking. Additionally, maintaining ongoing communication and ensuring Tony's well-being throughout the process would have been crucial and very, very important. Let me explain this. Think about it, right? Tony is living alone. If Tony is living alone in his own apartment in London, trafficking is out of the window because he's alone within an apartment that's paid for. He's completely independent. Nobody's there to monitor him. Nobody's there to watch him. Nobody's there to allegedly threaten him, right? So that is very important. If it's in with Dr. Obeta, then this is clearly a case of human trafficking, or at least a suspicion of human trafficking. And it's no wonder they were found guilty, you know. Now, I'm going to talk about what is known as mutual assured destruction. I call it MAD. And you might ask, what is this doing in this topic? Well, let us remember that the act of purchasing a kidney from someone is illegal. This implies that individuals who consent to selling their kidneys may also face legal consequences. However, it is crucial to note that human trafficking is internationally recognized as both illegal and immoral, carrying significantly higher sanctions. Remember the question I asked at the beginning. Almost everybody would go to jail to save their child, but nobody's going to traffic somebody and try to have it. I mean, there's some who would, but most people wouldn't. Therefore, when engaging in any illegal activity, it is important to share responsibility to deter potential informants or what we colloquially call snitching. Mutual assured destruction aims to reduce the likelihood of such occurrences, the likelihood that someone is going to snitch, someone is going to tell on the other person. If you all are going to get in trouble, it reduces the chances of snitching. It is crucial to recognize the immense difference between illegally purchasing a kidney to save one's child and engaging in the vile act of human trafficking to harvest someone's kidney. While people may somewhat understand the former as an act of desperation, the latter is widely condemned as evil and unacceptable. So I'm sorry to be repetitive, but this is very important to emphasize. Human trafficking, evil, clearly evil. Illegally buying a kidney to save your child, people morally understand it. They might even think that that's good that you did that. Given Tony's status as a victim of human trafficking, he now may have grounds for asylum. He probably wouldn't have had grounds for asylum had they, Ekweremadus, made sure that he had full consent. Had they made sure that he was independent, it would have been practically almost impossible for Tony to say, "Oh, I was trafficked. How? You were living in your own apartment. You paid all this money. How were you trafficked?" But you know, paying somebody a meager £7,000 or less, of course, obviously, that and living with Dr. Alberta, that definitely is human trafficking. Now, which takes me to Dr. Alberta's issue. I haven't talked much about it. Dr. Alberta had assumed the role of a middleman and sought to be compensated for his involvement. Rumors circulated that he had debts and saw this as an opportunity to get paid. However, I do still blame the Ekweremadus. Yes, in Nigeria, Dr. Alberta had full control of the situation. But upon Tony's arrival in the UK, the Ekweremadus should have promptly eliminated Dr. Alberta as a middleman. Maybe pay him off some money and tell him, hey, now you're no longer involved. Aside from financial motives, Dr. Obeda displayed no regard for Tony's well-being. If you hear him in the court case and you list, I don't think they showed his testimony, but I think it's in the transcript. If you look at in the transcript, you would be appalled by what he was saying. He had no regard for Tony at all. The failure of the Ekweremadus to take full control of Tony's welfare once he arrived in the UK would eventually come back to haunt them. And that's the issue here, is that they failed to take full control of Tony's situation and protect him and ensure that he was protected, given that he had offered to be a donor. Both the Ekweremadus and Dr. Obeta demonstrated a lot of greed. I previously spoke about how he probably took the majority of Tony, the money that was supposed to be given to Tony, that he was supposed to be paid, which was a meager £7,000. It comes as no surprise that Tony lied about his age, as he likely believed that stating he was 15 years old would increase his chances of being granted asylum. That's another reason why he did it. On March 10th of 2023, Senator Ekweremadu had an opportunity to testify, which is this year. If you're not watching in 2023, I'm so sorry. I'm recording in 2023. However, instead of indirectly, instead of looking at this issue and maybe indirectly, even directly blaming Dr. Obeta or something like that. He seemed to be blaming Tony. He said he was scammed and taken advantage of. This was a mistake. You're blaming the victim, a 21-year-old. This man is 60, right? He's 60 years old. He's blaming a 21-year-old who's barely past the teenage years and saying he was scammed. Now, he didn't mention his name, but it's obvious who he was talking about when he was testifying in court. This to me is a nail in the coffin. That's what they call a nail in the coffin. It literally nailed the case against Ekweremadus. If I were Senator Ekweremadu, I would have shown remorse for the situation. I would have stated that I believed full consent had been obtained, and I trusted Dr. Obeta to ensure that. That's what I would have said. I would have expressed genuine sorrow for Tony's circumstances and wished that I had fully understood the implications of the situation, of what I put him through. Additionally, I would have acknowledged my intention to purchase a kidney to save my daughter's life. Why just not acknowledge that and say, I really wanted to save my daughter's life. I was willing to pay lots of money to do so if I had to, right? And I thought that Dr. Obeta would make all the arrangements that were needed to be made. Dr. Obeta played a major role as a middleman in introducing Tony to the Ekweremadus. This is why he should take most of the responsibility. I don't understand the strategy of the Ekweremadus defense, but that's how I would have done it. When Senator Ekweremadu was questioned, he was asked, why didn't you get a kidney from a family member? He didn't answer the question. He never did. He kept saying that the doctors, Dr. Obeta advised him. Dr. Obeta is not is not a doctor specialized in kidney disease. He was some sort of, I think, a primary doctor from what I see. He kept saying, well, I was advised by my doctors that it was okay that family members were not okay to donate the kidney, which is complete nonsense. It's complete nonsense. Are you serious that there was no family member who could have been a match? No, that is just very unlikely. A more likely explanation, which I can explain here, he should have just been truthful. He could have truthfully explained that his family members were unwilling to donate their kidney. This is very common in Africa because of prevalent superstition surrounding organ donation. So a lot of people are just not willing to donate. In fact, most donations come from, white people. Blacks and brown people don't donate a lot of kidney. This is a fact. These are the numbers. That's just how it is. I don't know why there are other reasons, but I can speak about Africa. I know that in Africa, there's a lot of superstition surrounding giving up part of your body to somebody else. And therefore, people are very reluctant to do that. Sharing this truth would have potentially strengthened the Ekweremadus case. At least it could help them on the human trafficking one is what hit them the hardest. He also should have admitted that he was aware of the law regarding kidney purchases, but his overwhelming desire to save his daughter's life overshadowed his judgment. He kept saying he didn't know the law, that he was completely ignorant. He could have said, look, I knew that buying a kidney is illegal, but my daughter is dying. Every day that she has that disease, she's slowly getting closer to death. And my goal is to save my daughter. I'm willing to do anything to save my daughter. Can you imagine if he had said that? And said, I did not intend to traffic Tony. I would have taken care of Tony. I would have made sure I took care of his health. I was so happy. I thought that Tony gave consent. Dr. Alberta gave me that impression and gave consent. Well, then Ekweremadu did not even say that. He said it was a call. He was being conned by this 21-year-old, some sort of a con job. And he demonized the victim. And I think that was the nail in the coffin. Ike and Beatrice Ekweremadu were both found guilty of human trafficking and illegally purchasing attempt to purchase a kidney on March 23rd, 2023. Subsequently, on May 5th, 2023, Ike Ekweremadu was sentenced to 9 years, 8 months in prison. Beatrice was convicted on conspiracy, I do apologize, to commit human trafficking and received a lesser sentence of 4 years and 6 months. Dr. Alberta was also found guilty, of course, and he was found guilty and he was given 10 years. He was given the most sentence. It was obvious that Dr. Alberta did not care at all about Tony. And I don't know about the Ekweremadus, whether they were cared and they just didn't know how to handle the situation. But I definitely, from this story, it's very clear that Dr. Alberta did not care about Dr. Alberta, did not care about Tony's situation. These sentences were handed down by the UK's Central Criminal Court. Now, there are lessons we can learn from this. Number one, partial consent is insufficient. Partial consent is not consent. It is important to obtain full consent, especially if you've decided that you're going to engage in illegal activity. If you know that you're going to engage in illegal activity, but you're doing it to save somebody's life, in this case, he was trying to save his dog, it is imperative that you get full consent. I'm repeating, I know I've stated previously, but that's lesson number one. Lesson number two, you got to remember this one: mutual assured distraction. Share responsibility in case consequences go awry. And I do apologize, the last lesson is also going to be a little bit of a rant. Don't be greedy. Don't be greedy, especially when it comes to saving your child's life. Don't be greedy with other people. This is also a rant about African elites. African elites, including us, diaspora, we must cease mistreating the underprivileged in our countries and start treating them with dignity and respect. The treatment of Tony, exemplified by the senator, is unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. And the reason why the Ekweremadus treated Tony that way and Dr. Obeta was because they just thought he was, he's of a lower status. And therefore we can treat him as bad as we want. He doesn't understand the value of money. So let's just give him £7,000 or whatever they gave him, probably less than that. That, to me, is completely disrespectful of a person who is supposed to have equal dignity. Had Tony been treated with respect and dignity, I think the Ekweremadus right now would have at worst been facing, maybe they would have had just a suspended sentence, which is probation here in America. And that's it. I think that mistake is what led them to be convicted of human trafficking. Stonia was found not guilty by the court. I will be providing a link in the comments if anyone should feel compelled to donate a kidney. You might say, oh, Chinti, that's pretty big, but I actually met a couple that say that the wife, I think, I was talking to the husband, the wife did try to donate a kidney. So this is highly possible. This is an incredibly tragic story, and none of us would wish to face such a moral dilemma. However, there are lessons we can draw from this of how, so if we ever face dilemmas, and I hope not for anybody watching this, that if you have privilege, if you have resources, if you have a lot of monetary resources, that you won't be greedy, you will be considerate, and you make sure that you get a consent and not just do things just because you feel that the other person is of a lower status, so you do have disregard for them. An update on Tony. Tony's applying for asylum. If I was in Tony's shoes, I probably would have made the same choices. Okay, because Tony was in a situation where he couldn't understand what was going on. Tony, to his credit, rejected any offer of financial compensation. He was offered financial compensation by the courts. Hey, we can order them to compensate you for this trafficking. He rejected it. So that shows that, genuinely speaking, Tony was not looking for money. He just wanted to be treated with respect and dignity, and he was mistreated. The misrepresentations, or some people would say lying, were for him to get out of that situation. Most of us would lie in a desperate situation. Anyway, thank you very much. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'll still be working on my videos and trying to improve. You've seen the background is improving, I've seen the process of moving, doing different things. So thank you for watching. Good day, good night, wherever you are. Good evening. Thank you.
Yo, who think I should let him fall or should I pick him up? Is he going down? Is he going down? Who wanna bet? Who wanna bet that he's gonna go down? Should I get him? Nah.